Okay, so we're back to my beginner's series. I'm using some sea white postcards, so miniature postcards. They're here. I'll pop a link in the description. I'm also using a Cotman pan with set colours in there, so I'll use what I've got on 2 brushes, a round number 6 and a round number 10. So I'm going to do some hawthorn berries today, nice and loose, plenty of water. And then we're going to use a little bit of salt to draw out the colour. Okay, so I'm going to come in first of all with a bit of cerulean blue. I'm going to flip that through. Sort of a diagonal stroke, but not stripes. I'm wiggling as I go. And then a little bit of ultramarine blue. These sea white postcards are a wood pulp paper, so I do need to work fairly quickly. On some of my bigger ones I use a cotton paper, a Saunders Waterford, which gives you much more time. Give my brush a bit of a rinse. I've got a little bit of sap green here. So I'm going to pop some of that towards the bottom. And then we've got a scary green here, which is viridium. So it's very emerald. If I dot that in now, it's too bright. So what we need to do is pop some brown into it. Some brown or red, the complementary colour, will change that to a natural looking green. Much more pleasing to the eye. Then we're going to swap down to a number 6 and come into this alizarin crimson. And I'm going to dot a few hawthorn berries into the background. Random dots. Take some normal table salt, pop it in my hand. I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit on. Don't want too much in the sky area. I want it to really hit the foliage. And then I'm going to leave that to dry. You have to leave it to dry naturally so it soaks the paint up. So that's nicely dry. I've just made sure that I've rubbed all the salt off because we want that to be off now. We've got some lovely texture happening in there. So what I'm going to do now is put in a second sort of layer. I'm going to bring in some bits of foliage. Now I'm bringing this straight on to dry, and this is that lovely bright green viridium with a bit of burnt umber in it. And I'm just playing this through with a round number 6. You don't actually need to be too precise because you're going to spritz it with a bit of a water spritzer. It's giving you a second layer that's going to give you a little bit more depth. So I've just got a little water spritzer here. I'm just going to spray that over. And it's going to just start to blend it. It's a nice easy way to do a second layer of wet in wet, and you can just take in and play with the paint. What can be quite challenging when you're new is when you take a second layer over, you lift the first layer. So this just gives you a way of doing that, and you're getting that little bit more depth in there. I can also add some of the alizarin crimson. I've managed to get 2 alizarin crimsons in this palette. So I'm going to start to put in some more hawthorn berries. So this is a lesson in layering. We've still got that very soft background, then we've got this harder layer. You can actually indent with the back of the brush as well, and just bring through a few brambles, indent into the paper, the paint will run in. I'm going to dry this one off. So that's nicely dry now. And then what I'm going to do is, with my round number 6 and a bit of water, I've done a couple already over here, I'm going to do some bigger hawthorn berries. So I'm actually going to lift the paint off the surface. So I've got a couple over here as well. I'm still with my round number 6. I'm loading up with burnt umber. So I'm going to come through and create some twiggy bits. So you don't want to come over your berries. You're thinking branches. And they can flow different ways. If you want to come down to a smaller brush, you can do. This again has got quite a good point. It's a fairly new brush, so I can do quite a lot with it. But you could use a smaller brush if you wanted to. Then I'm pulling out to these hawthorn berries. So I've got something joining them. I'll just show you a different brush. So this is a rigger, so this is a number 2 rigger. This is very good for doing things like this. You get a much nicer, finer stroke. You keep a lot of paint in there, so you don't have to keep dipping back in. With a detailer brush, what tends to happen is you have to dip quite a lot. So this is a good brush for you to have to do these little types of strokes. Not essential for this painting though. I'm going to come back into the alizarin crimson. And this again is coming on to dry. I'm just going to leave a little bit of light in each of these berries. Try to leave the light in the same place or near as. Popping in those little berries. If you want them to look a bit redder, you can add a little bit of the cadmium red in there. If I dip into the burnt umber now, I'm just going to do that a little bit on the bottom of the hawthorn berries, and because they're still a little bit damp, it should blend in. You should get a really nice effect. If I come into the ultramarine blue, I can add a few little bits of twiggy bits as well. Just to give a little bit more interest in that foreground. It's all about creating depth and distance. And if you want a bit of shadow on any of these, you can just drop a tiny bit of the ultramarine blue in. Then you just want to rinse your brush off, dab it off, and just blend it a little bit. If it's really wet, it'll blend. If it's not, then you just need to help it a little bit, but you just need to make sure you haven't got too much water on the brush. You've got a bit of shadow in there as well. Okay, I'll dry that one off. And there we go, so the tape's removed. A beautiful little hawthorn berry picture for you. Quite seasonal. If you've enjoyed this one, please do like, subscribe and share. I'll pop you another video here and I'll see you next time.